Following on from a distress signal from Beverly Crusher to his Enterprise D-Com badge, Admiral Jean-Luc Picard enlists the help of Captain William Riker. Attempting to use an impromptu inspection of the refitted USS Titan A, the two try to reach Beverly at the edge of Federation space. However, Captain Liam Shaw is far less accommodating than his first officer, 7 of 9, who disobeys orders to help them out. Yet their arrival finds Beverly in stasis, a young man named Jack Crusher, her son, and a menacing ship called the Shrike, commanded by Vadic, who wants the young Crusher for reasons unknown. Meanwhile, Raffi attempts to uncover a seedy conspiracy for Starfleet intelligence, but once she gets in too deep into danger, Worf returns to aid her in an investigation, which is heightened by the destruction of a Starfleet training facility, using stolen portal tech. All of these elements gradually link together with further revelations that shake the former crew of the USS Enterprise to their core, especially Jean-Luc Picard. So Season 3 of Star Trek Picard premiered last month on Paramount Plus as a weekly episodic series, and I haven't been all that much of a fan. I haven't been very much compelled to watch a lot of the new Star Trek stuff. It's just been hitting off a lot of word of mouth that really wasn't to my liking. The style and the tone of things, they just didn't appeal to me. A lot of things were taken off to different directions that just weren't really the type of Star Trek that I very much enjoy. But as this one premiered and started getting a lot of really strong buzz about it, like a lot of people I was looking on Twitter and various other things online, was getting off on really strong vibes of like a lot of people were very impressed or very excited about things, where things were going, a lot of different things in the storyline. So eventually last weekend I actually broke down and like, okay, I'll get up on Paramount Plus and I'll actually watch the first 4 episodes that they had, and I was very much impressed. I was very much impressed watching all 4 episodes within a day. Then going off and watching episode 5 this previous week, which is the halfway point of the entire season here, 10 episode season, I'm hooked onto this thing. There's such a good quality involved with what they have done here, and the main game changer from the previous seasons seems to be showrunner Terry Matalas, who previously worked on 12 Monkeys, that series, very highly acclaimed, and looking up his IMDb page, he worked a little bit on Voyager, he worked very extensively on Enterprise as a sort of assistant to the producers, stuff like that, so a guy very much previously entrenched in Star Trek, kind of coming back around about 15 or so years later, linking up and kind of running the entire show here and moving it towards a direction here that feels so much in line and so much of a respectful lineage towards what you had towards the end of TNG, the original series. You know, stuff when the movies got a little bit off to a certain degree where people don't quite revere them quite as well as the characterizations were as strong as they were on the series. This feels like it ties in so much, especially when you got someone like Worf, who got so much development between TNG and then DS9 and the other films and whatnot. There's a lot of things in here that are just paying homage to these characters, where they've been, and following those lineages, those legacies that they built up through all these stories, all the relationships, all the history they've lived through, doing some things that are kind of like nice nods, but also things that are just very much entrenched in their characters here that have been going off in the previous 2 seasons and whatnot, and kind of tying things off of where those characters have progressed up to this point. But there's such a very good vibe in this whole thing that does kind of pay homage, because you have 7 and 9 here portrayed by Jeri Ryan. There's things towards Voyager. There's things towards Deep Space Nine. There's stuff towards TNG. And that's my era of Star Trek so much. I've got all those things on Blu-ray or DVD or whatnot. It's just my series. Those are my series that I very much enjoy and very much link into what was born out of me, what I very much loved when I tapped into Star Trek back in like 92, 93 or something else like that. All that type of stuff is very much harnessed in this entire season here. Go off in very interesting ways with this storyline that got going on here, where I'm going to dance around spoilers, but not entirely spoiler free in this whole thing. So it's going to be a little bit here and there, but if you watch at least the first couple episodes, you'll be at least knowledgeable of what's going on here to kind of get what I'm talking about in this regard. But they got a very good story here that's setting up in good ways here. That has a little bit of ominous sort of tones here and there, but also some mystery going on the whole thing. But some bring forth the warmth and the charm of these characters so much. You got so much things team up with Captain Riker and Admiral Picard here, as they're kind of going up on the Titan A and kind of getting up on this mission they got pulled into by this distress signal from Beverly Crusher. So you got a lot of Picard, Riker type of stuff, and sort of role reversals that Picard's kind of like saying like, oh, maybe I'll have to start calling me number one, because Riker kind of takes command at certain points in time, and he's kind of calling the shots to a certain degree. Riker has a little bit more recent sort of experiences being in command, a little bit more comfortable with it. Picard's a little bit further detached from that point in time when he was a captain and stuff like that, so Riker's a little bit more on point with that type of stuff. So there's kind of nice role reversals they play in that regard. They're very much good type of things to have for these characters. They have a little bit more of a looseness or whatnot. They're not playing the same sort of hierarchy roles that they had back in the series. They have a bit more of that commonality between the two of them, much more personal type of things. They can talk a little bit more on the level in certain way. There's not much of that command structure getting in the way of things. A little much more guys who have lived through certain experiences in their lives, and they can be much more equals in that regard. So I much like that quality between the two characters here. And a lot of things with Riker in this whole thing where part of his story at this point in time is that he did have a son, but he lost his son at a certain point in time, and it's kind of caused a certain rift between him and Deanna at this point, but also it kind of factors into how he approaches dangerous scenarios and stuff like that, how his priorities are much more towards maintaining the safety of the crew instead of kind of going off and risking things as much as he possibly would, maybe earlier in his life or whatnot. Here, he's kind of focusing things on a certain way to maintain the safety and security of the crew in a certain way, but Picard has certain other emotional impulses that he's kind of dealing with this whole thing, where he's reconnecting with Beverly and finding out he has a son he never knew he had with Beverly Crusher, and so the priorities are much more immediate for Picard here, working off those immediate, brand new, fresh emotions he has. So a lot more different things they kind of get off in a certain way. We can have those sort of senses of conflict between those types of characters and have something come out of it that feels very much organic, but also very true to where they progress to at this point in time, but doesn't portray who they've been in the past. I like that quality so much, and just everyone you get here, Gates McFadden is doing a phenomenal job. I don't think she may have even gained a few steps since the series, but she did such a fantastic job as Beverly Crusher when she really got some very strong episodes to really flesh out her character, really step forward and show exactly what Beverly was made out of. She's absolutely just pinpointed that so strongly here with her performance and having those conflicts between her and Picard in this entire thing. This whole thing where they haven't seen each other in 20 years and they have this long history of this sort of affection, this sort of thing they had going on, but there's such a divide in that type of way where Beverly was so protective that she wanted to protect her son that she has now when she's lost a husband before. She's kind of lost Wesley to this sort of big traveler metaphysical type of thing out there. So she's trying to maintain that one piece of a family that she can hold on to and still maintain a grasp onto. I like that so much. And the scene that Gates McFadden and Patrick Stewart have when they're kind of having that whole hash out of the entire history between them, it's magnificently well acted. Such good qualities of everything they bring to that whole thing. And this is the writing so much that brings the characters forward beyond just the performances, is how they've written everything so well here to go back to those characters, what they felt like, and what the natural progression is, how they would navigate their lives in these next phases of their entire lives, with how the galaxy has changed and all the different status quos that kind of moved on from that point forward that we last saw them in Nemesis and stuff like that. I like so much what they've done writing these characters so very well. It comes out extremely well, and one of the absolute standouts of the entire season so far is Todd Stashwick as Captain Liam Shaw of the Titan A. He's great. People kind of comparing just a little bit to Captain Edward Jellicoe, Ronnie Cox's character from Chain of Command. I think they bring it back in Prodigy now, the animated series where they have Janeway involved. But the fact is, he comes off very much like stonewalling, very surly type of character at first. Very much abrasive. He's very much got this sort of like barrier between him and guys like Picard and Riker and whatnot. He's not just going to fall over because these guys with this sort of reputation step onto his ship. He's very much a steadfast type of guy, but he comes off very abrasive to a certain degree, but not without point, not without merit. They bring that forward in the entire season here, showing where his progression is, what his history is, why he is the man he is now, but also able to humanize him, able to warm him up as you go along, but still maintain a certain attitude that's very much appealing, it's very entertaining what he has here. He's got kind of a Spitfire sort of attitude going on in the whole thing, especially even after he does become a little bit more relatable and stuff like that. He still has that sort of cutting cynicism to him, but not to a way that feels jaded or anything like that. Just there's a certain quality that he's bringing to this whole thing that's making everyone just hungering so much for like a Titan spinoff or something else like that, have him continue on as his character when the season ends, where we don't know where anything's going at this point in time, but he seems very much up for it. Matalas seems very intrigued by the idea. A lot of people are just very rallying around this character because he's doing such a fantastic job portraying it, and such great, entertaining, and interesting writing. That has some great scenes so far in this entire season. Fantastic type of stuff where he's talking about what happened to Wolf 359 and why he has this animosity against Picard and all these different things. A lot of things kind of encapsulated inside of trauma, survivor's guilt, stuff like that. Just all these interesting elements that really just galvanize that thing. And this fantastic relationship he has with 7 and 9, who's the first officer of the Titan A here, where he kind of makes it a point where she should be addressed as Commander Annika Hansen instead of 7 of 9. So there's kind of a very, very much a conflict between the two characters. Creates a friction there, where you kind of play with that. You kind of get a little bit of a banter going on as he's kind of progressed here and there. So they've done some great jobs making arcs for these characters and progressing them to a certain point where they're not one note or two-dimensional or anything like that. They really are bringing out a lot of depth to everything going on here and creating relationships that are very much entertaining, but also you get a lot of emotional value out of everything that's going on in the entire thing. Again, Ed Speleers portraying the character of Jack Crusher, the now son of Beverly Crusher, who kind of bring up, well, he's actually 34, but he's supposed to be playing someone playing around 21 or 22 or something else like that. So there's little flaky things, but he's fantastic. He's doing a fantastic job acting the role so well because all the mystery is really centered around his character. Because we're trying to figure out a lot of things are happening to him, where he's having these bizarre visions of stuff like that. We have no clue. There's no real context for anything yet. It's going to be kind of the MacGuffin, maybe mystery box type of thing that might go one way or another. It's really the kind of pivotal thing that could go really, really inspired and very much kind of hark it back to something else or open up new doors or kind of go off to a certain degree that feels like, oh, maybe you've gone off to a certain way that doesn't feel quite as true to the fresh nature of what you're doing here. You can go in different ways because they are doing things that are kind of touching on Deep Space Nine and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things you could tap into what Deep Space Nine did with like the Prophets and stuff like that. When you have other elements from the Dominion War kind of seeping into this whole thing. But I think Ed Speleers is doing a fantastic job just adding a charm to a character that has sort of a roguish quality to him. He's like very much good-natured and very much a humanitarian with his mother, kind of slipping around here and there, kind of like smuggling medical supplies between different planets and stuff like that. So there's a very kind of quick-witted type of sort of like just a roguish quality. I think it's just a way to kind of go off it in a certain way where he does have this sort of abrasiveness, this kind of barrier again. Another guy, kind of a barrier against Picard here. They kind of have to work through as you kind of work into the entire story and get into the mechanics of the roots of everything in this whole thing. So I think he's doing a fantastic job with this character. Just a matter of exactly where these sort of more fantastical seeming elements are kind of morphing into as we go forward in the entire story here. But so far, everyone on this cast is doing a tremendous job. We got Michelle Hurd coming back as Rafaela, kind of getting put into this sort of like really scummy edge of the entire corner of like criminal underworld type of things, kind of off to the side type of like intelligence mission to a certain degree, but she's kind of like playing with smoke and mirrors and shadows and whatnot, where she doesn't really know who the hell she's dealing with at Starfleet and who she's truly trying to getting at down in the underworld and stuff like that. And eventually you get revealed that Worf has something to do with all this type of stuff. And Michael Dorn, the guy's had the absolute most time to develop a fantastic, brilliant character throughout the course of Star Trek, and he is absolutely fantastic here. Just like the Dorn had certain input, what he wanted to come back and play Worf as, because he knew him so deeply and been through so many different things. You wanted to have a much more of a kind of a silent, sort of like reflective type in a certain way, kind of a samurai instead of like a straight out warrior type of thing. You want to have a certain peacefulness within the soul, a certain reflective spirituality about the entire character here that I think is marvelous. He's marvelously doing such a great job just showing all these different new facets to the character here and just owning a lot of things from his own history in this regard, talking about being House of Martok, House of Sergei Rezhenko, and the Slayer of Gowron, and all these different things. He's very much owning everything that he's done in his life and just kind of progressing forward beyond that and just having such an interesting idea here. We're going to have this sort of character with Raffi here who has this addictive history to herself and stuff like that, substance abuse, and have a lot of different things going on in the whole thing. She's very impulsive and very much sort of aggressive in certain ways, so you can have this sort of dynamic play between the two characters, one to learn from the other and stuff like that. So it's a very nice, intelligent pairing there, and there's such great things adding into this seedy underbelly of the entire universe here, getting into all these type of characters and whatnot, with some Ferengis, some shady Vulcans, stuff like that. It's very interesting type of things they're playing in that regard. And they're not playing anything on the nose or whatnot. There's nothing played really on the nose that much when you're dealing with that. They have some moments or whatnot here and there, kind of harking back to the history of these characters and having little moments here and there, but everything is played very strongly, very respectfully for everyone here. And you got some really good stuff going on with this. The main villain we've gotten so far, portrayed by Amanda Plummer, the daughter of Christopher Plummer, who portrayed General Chang in Star Trek VI. You can definitely see she's taking some cues from that. There's certain points where she's playing this character of Vatic, who's got this fantastic, scary-ass freaking ship called the Shrike, and she's got these giddy moments or whatnot. But there's one little moment I noticed where she's kind of having that sort of kind of a giddy moment, spinning the captain's chair around just like Chang did back in the Undiscovered Country. So taking little cues there or whatnot, but she's playing a very interesting character that we see a few extra shades of. She's playing a little bit of a duplicitous personality because she is being kind of influenced by a third party in this entire thing here that has much more overarching elements and much more overarching motives to what's going on here. So there's still a lot of mysteries going on in the whole thing, but they're all extremely intriguing because they're fueled by some very fantastically well written and portrayed characters here. And let me tell you, one thing that's really hitting off people is the fact that they're doing a lot of things, the music of this entire thing. They're homaging stuff from James Horner, from Jerry Goldsmith. Specifically, when you get to the end credits of each episode, they play the theme from First Contact. And then it goes off into the themes that Horner did for, like, Wrath of Khan or Search for Spock, stuff like that. People are buzzing. They want the soundtrack, and I think it will happen. I think people are saying they will, once the season is wrapped, there will be a particular soundtrack release or whatnot, because people are just gushing all over. But beyond that stuff, I think they're doing a really fabulous job just getting a very strong vibe for all the music that is not direct homages, really good stuff that weaves all together. And even the sound effects, I picked up that, yeah, there's a TNG sort of era sound effects, but they're also kind of picking up stuff from like the TOS movies. A few little things here and there, there's really good things in that regard, where it's identifiable aspects of the entire world of Star Trek here that are being integrated all over the place. I think is just so very well inspired in that regard. I think everything is coming together very, very well with such a interesting intrigue with the whole thing. I just think there's so much things in this that are very much compelling because they harken back to stuff that you know before, but they're still moving forward into new eras and kind of evolving things to a certain degree here. They're getting a lot of interesting elements moving forward. They're just going to be extremely intriguing to see exactly how far they go. If they touch on other characters that might come back in some places or here and there where there have been one or two or whatnot. But there's some very, very good things going on in this whole thing that are very compelling, and they're very much, it's the fact that it's respectful. The fact of the matter is, even when they are bringing up old threads that didn't really get fully tied off before, there's still things that you could feel like they're unresolved from TNG, and some other things here and there, when they're coming back to them and trying to do stuff to kind of conclude them, kind of tie them up to a certain degree, they feel very respectful. They feel very, very much at the heart and core of exactly what these characters were going through and what 20 years later would kind of affect them to a certain degree. I like so much what they're doing with that. I think they do a fantastic job. I think this entire first 5 episodes has been absolutely marvelous. I've just completely loved it. I've even checked out just a little bit of Strange New Worlds. If you like TOS, the original series, definitely check out Strange New Worlds. If for nothing else, Anson Mount is a fantastically charming and excellent Captain Christopher Pike. Beautiful stuff from him. But the fact is, I think this season of Picard is just excelling so much so far. And I watched the 5th episode on Thursday morning, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head. I haven't been able to get this series out of my head for the last couple of days. So it's like, I've had trouble getting up trying to do another video that I kind of promised here or whatnot, and I just kept circling back around to doing like a mid-season review of this whole thing, and just like the fact that it's sticking in my head, I'm anticipating so much what's going to happen in the next episode when you get the next links in the chain, because we've still got LeVar Burton coming back as Jeri LaForge. Deanna Troi is going to have much more of a role apparently later on this entire season from the trailers. We know Lore's coming back with Brent Spiner portraying the Kroll again. Moriarty is coming back again through some means, whatever, through whatever cog in the story he's going to fulfill this whole thing. There's certain other elements that are going to still wrap in this whole thing that are going to be very intriguing to see where they came from and where they're going. So, like, I'm very much interested in exactly where everything's going in this entire regard to find some, hopefully, some extremely satisfying resolutions to certain storylines, some of the characters that really deserve a little bit extra something, and just see how these newly progressed characters, someone like Worf, we're finally seeing what's been going on with him since the end of everything else. So it's like, I'm very much intrigued. I'm very much compelled and captivated exactly what they've been doing. Showrunner Terry Matalas has been doing a fantastic job. Apparently, Todd Stashwick worked on 12 Monkeys before with him, so he just brought him back over. This whole thing was just a fantastic character of Captain Shaw, all this type of stuff. Some very fantastic things going on in this entire series. I think this is exactly what I wanted from Star Trek. I feel it's very cinematic and theatrical. I think there's so many things in just the design of the entire series right now at this point in time, this season, to look fantastic. I think the Titan A looks wonderful. This Neo-Constitution class, you know, I think they kind of like harken back where they did kind of a refit in the Titan, and now they kind of remodeled to a certain degree in this new sort of class of starship. So really kind of harkening back to that, and they did such a fantastic job using some James Horner music when they're leaving space dock and stuff like that. So many good things are just like, feel so heartwarming. So much at peace and whatnot, where you got these wonderful moments that feel absolutely purely Star Trek, of discovering new species and new worlds and stuff like that. Seeing the wonder of the universe unfold before you amidst all this sort of like subterfuge and espionage type of things going on. So great things in that regard. So balancing out the paranoia and the suspicion and all the little conspiratorial elements, you still have those wondrous moments that very much are Star Trek, right to the core of things. So I think this season is doing some fantastic work, and of course now since I've done this, I will have to say something once this season concludes and give you another video. So let me know, guys, if you've been watching it. Let me know what you feel about it so far. Talk about spoilers if you want to. Just kind of steer clear of a couple little things that people might not know yet. But definitely, I like the fact that Matalas said there were going to be tethers and connections back to Deep Space Nine and continuations of certain things. This is definitely doing that. And of course, like I said, with 7 and 9, you got Voyager here. They've name dropped Admiral Janeway a few times, so people get a little curious and whatnot. We don't know. There's been no words about certain things that have come up in this entire season that have been absolutely phenomenally well received, that no one had a damn clue it was ever coming. So, Lord knows. So guys, let me know what you feel about it. If you like the video, thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And there's always the Patreon to contribute something every month to get a little early access to everything we have going on here. Of course, the Super Thanks feature. Anything you like, especially around here on this channel, you can just hit the Super Thanks feature, donate whatever money you want. It goes straight to me and stuff like that, and this whole thing, so we can keep doing videos and commentaries and all these wonderful things. So guys, you know me, I love Star Trek. I've done reviews on all the first 6 Star Trek movies. I did reviews for First Contact and Generations. I love Star Trek. I've been such a great Star Trek fan for so very long. I love it, and this season just is exactly what I want. It's so absolutely just perfectly good. Everything I want to get off of Star Trek. So thoughts and stuff like that and all that type of stuff. So thanks guys so much. Take care. Bye bye.